Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So for this week's video I thought I would do something a little bit different, something that I haven't ever filmed on this channel before. I actually had the idea of this probably like halfway through last year, so I thought that I would just sit down with you guys today and look through all the movies at the cinemas that I've watched in 2018. So obviously new movies released from January 2018 to December 2018. Kind of just talk about the movies that I've watched and review them for you guys. And I think in 2018 it is the most I have ever been to the movies than any other year. I went to the movies 22 times in 2018. That's crazy. I hate to think how much money that is just spent on movie tickets. If you haven't seen any of these movies, I will link all of the trailers to all of the movies that I talk about. So without further ado, let's jump into this video. So the first movie that I went to go and see was on the 1st of the 1st of 2018, so New Year's Day, and that was Pitch Perfect 3. So I went to go and see this with Shosh. I loved the other two Pitch Perfects. I think I liked the first one more than the second one, and I liked the third one more than the second one. I was excited for this one to come out. It's supposedly the finale, but I have seen sneak peeks on Rebel Wilson's Instagram of all of the Pitch Perfect cast doing this. I'm thinking that there might be a fourth one coming out, but I'm not 100% sure. I loved this movie. The soundtrack is good, the jokes are funny, some of them are really sexual and some of them are really racist, but I mean that's just Pitch Perfect in a nutshell. If you know Pitch Perfect, every time I watch this movie it brings me back to that first day when I watched it with Shosh, because that day was one of the happiest days I have had. It was after I met Phil and I got together with Phil. I actually bought the DVD of this now, as you would have seen in my Boxing Day haul. If you haven't seen it, I'll link it down below. So the next movie that I went to go see was on the 2nd of the 1st, so obviously the day after New Year's, and that was Jumanji 2. So this was when I actually asked Phil out. I didn't realise I was like asking him out at the time. I thought like obviously I wanted to hang out with him and all of that, but I didn't know it was like an official date until we went to the movies. So I kind of asked him if he wanted to go to the movies just because I didn't think he'd say no. So he's like, oh yeah, I'll go see a movie with you. Which one do you want to go and see? I was like, well, I've already seen Pitch Perfect 3, so I want to go and see Jumanji 2. So he's like, yep, cool, I've been wanting to watch that movie too, so I'll come watch it with you. It is great. I was really nervous that they were going to butcher it, because obviously the first movie is a classic. If you haven't seen the first Jumanji, please go and watch it because it's really good. It's got Robin Williams in it, which makes me really sad now to know that he's no longer with us. Jumanji 2 stars The Rock and Nick Jonas. It's got Jack Black, that's the one I was thinking of. It's so funny, it's done so well, the actors are just spot on. Got a lot of consistencies from the first movie. The next movie that I went to go and see was on the 6th of the 1st, and that again was Pitch Perfect 3 with Phil. I never ever go to the movies for a second time, so I must have really loved Pitch Perfect 3 if I went and took Phil a second time. Phil hadn't seen it and I thought he'd find it quite funny. The next movie I went and saw on the 19th of the 1st, and that was The Maze Runner, The Death Cure. Now this was the finale in the trilogy series. It's based on a book series by James Dashner, if you didn't know that already. I've read all the books. I didn't really like this movie, if I was honest, because they didn't follow the books for the second one, which meant they weren't going to follow the books for the third one. They followed the books mostly to the first one, and I think the first Maze Runner movie is actually my favourite one, just because it's done really well, and this new one I didn't think they did it very well. I think if you haven't read the books, the movies will be fine, like they'll make sense and everything, but I think because I had so many high expectations from reading the book, the movie just really disappointed me. And one of my favourite characters dies as well in this movie. So yeah, I just wasn't really a big fan. Really wanted to like the third movie. I didn't like the Scorch Trials. I thought that was a bit boring. So I was a little bit like, oh, I really hope that I butchered the last one, but I just, nah. And I don't know if I said or not, but Phil and I went to go and see The Maze Runner. So the next one I went to go see with Phil on the 28th of the 1st, and that was Ferdinand. Now, I really liked this movie. It's an anime about a bull, but he's really friendly, and it's just a really good light-hearted movie. It probably would come under kids movies, but I mean, I reckon kids movies have some of the best messages, and as an adult you can really appreciate a good kids movie. So I think animated movies are actually my favourite movies to watch, because most of the time, like 9 times out of 10, they're done really well. Really good storyline. So funny though when we went to go and watch it, because there was like all kids in the cinemas and then there was just us, so it was like, yep. All of these ones so far, including this next one that I'm going to say, have been from Reading Cinemas. This next one was a very popular one. I went to go and see this with Phil on the 15th of the 2nd, so now we're moving from movies I saw in January to February. I think January was the biggest month for movies though. I don't think any other months have quite as many movies as January. This one was Black Panther. Obviously it's a Marvel movie, like come on. I think they had 2 end credit scenes. Normally with Marvel, wait till the very end, like after the first end scene there's usually another one as well. I didn't mind this movie. I thought it was an interesting concept. I will admit I was so overtired when I went and watched it. I think I had like 4 hours sleep. So I did fall asleep like halfway through the movie, but that wasn't because it was a boring movie. I fell asleep on his shoulder and he woke me up like halfway through it. It's quite funny. His suit's really cool. It is quite an actiony movie, obviously, because it's Marvel. Also, it was one of those movies that like the cinema was like so full. Like Marvel movies sell out just like that, like so many people are invested in them, and that one was actually Phil's idea to go and watch. Next movie again is from Reading Cinemas. I went and saw this on the 23rd of the 2nd. Went with Phil, I don't know if I said that, and it was Game Night. Now this movie I loved. It's got Rachel McAdams in it. It's a really good funny movie. It has a massive plot twist at the end that I didn't see coming. So it was done so well. The only movie that's made Phil cry just with how funny it is. I'd been wanting to see that one for a while as well when I saw that Rachel McAdams was on it, because I love her. I think any movie that she's in, her acting is great. Like the next movie I went to see with Phil at Reading Cinemas on the 28th of the 3rd, so now we're moving into March. I went to go and see Tomb Raider. Again, this was a great movie. Good action. It was quite an intense watch, I think, from memory. I think it's based off of like a book or a comic or something. The actress in it was really good. Interesting concept. The next movie I went to go and see again at Reading Cinemas on the 2nd of the 4th. So now moving into April. I went to go and see this with Phil, and we went to go and see Ready Player One. Now again, this movie was one that did quite well in the cinemas. Phil's currently got the book, and it's that alternate reality PlayStation-y Xbox type game movie thing. When I originally watched the trailer to this movie, I didn't think I would like it. I thought I would find it quite boring. I'm not a big gamer, so I didn't think I'd find it interesting. I didn't think I'd understand it. But it was a really interesting take on things. It's very relatable to how society is at the moment. Like we're all turning into like very technological based society now. It's had some really interesting ideas in it, so yeah, really liked this movie. Now this next movie I went to go and see with Phil at Focal Point Cinema, and that was A Quiet Place. This movie I think has to be one of the best movies I've watched of 2018. Like this is up there in my top. Hardly any talking in it. Almost in the cinema have to, like, you feel like you have to be quiet, because like if you make any sort of noise, those monsters that are attracted to sound will come and get you. And I really liked the idea of the girl with the cochlears. because if you guys don't know, my sister is deaf and she has cochlears, so it hit very, very close to home with how they were all communicating with each other and how quiet everything was, because my sister was deaf for the first 5 years of her life, so that would have been what her life was like. It's got Emily Blunt in it and it's such a good movie, and it's so different from any other movie that I have ever watched. I wouldn't describe it as a horror, I'd describe it as more of a thriller. It's more jump scares than gore. There's a couple of bits that really freaked me out because I can't do horrors. If you don't know that about me, I can't do horrors. So the next movie I saw with Phil at Reading Cinemas on the 20th of the 4th, that was Rampage. Again, I loved this movie. It stars The Rock. He has done so well for movies this year. Oh, this year. I say this year, but I mean 2018. Because he was in Jumanji 2, he was in Rampage, and he was in Skyscraper. How he had the time to do all 3 movies baffles me, because they must have been filming for so long for all 3 of those movies. So I've got a lot of respect for him. Again, it was a really interesting concept. I think it was because it was the whole idea of like a science experiment gone wrong, which I think is really interesting, because science is a big part of growing, I think, like, because we need science for technology, which is the way that the world is going at the moment. And I just think it kind of captured that quite well, that we're always trying to improve and we're always trying to advance and we're always trying to grow. I just thought it was done really well, and even the animations were done really well. So yeah, really enjoyed that movie. The next movie was the most popular movie I have been to in 2018. Guess in the comments below what it is before I say it. I'll give you 5 seconds now to try and guess what it was. Make sure you don't cheat and watch ahead and then go back and write it, because I mean that's not cool. Don't do that. This movie I went to go and see with Phil at Focal Point on the 25th of the 4th, so Anzac Day, Avengers Infinity War. If you got it right in the comments, I'll like your comment. We did want to go to Reading Cinemas, but Reading Cinemas had sold out, so we went to Focal Point and they had a few tickets left. So we got our tickets the day before, came back the next day obviously to go watch the movie. Sold out, no one could get any more tickets. The line was right back to the door. Again, I went to this movie because Phil wanted to go and watch it. He'd been saying to me since the start of the year that he was excited for this movie. The second part of it actually comes out this year in April. It's part 1 and part 2 movie, which I didn't realise watching it until the very end, when it kind of just stopped, and I just said to Phil, is this a 2-part thing? And he's like, yep. Again, it's got 2 end credit scenes. Again, I thought this movie was done really well. It's really intense, there's a lot that happens, but like, I am one of those types of people, when I'm watching a movie, I don't always click like this to stuff that's happening. It takes me a little bit to try and understand what's going on and what's happening and why people are doing certain things. But this movie I understood just like that. Like, it's a really easy movie to follow. It is kind of a lead up to what's going to happen in part 2. If you don't like movies that kind of just get to a point and like, you know, that don't seem like a lead up, you probably won't like this movie. This movie I went and saw on the 9th of the 5th, so we're now moving into movies in May. I went to go and see this with Shosh, and this was I Feel Pretty. This movie I loved. This is such a great chick flick movie. It's a really good movie for girls. Like, it has such a good message about being confident within who you are, and that who you are and the body that you have is enough and is good. I just think the actresses did really well in this movie, so yeah, really liked this movie. The next movie that I went to go see, I went to see with Phil, and it was in Reading Cinemas on the 13th of the 5th, and that was The Breaker-Uppers. Now, if you guys live not in New Zealand, you probably won't know about this movie, because it is a film that was made by New Zealanders. So it's very like Kiwi humour, Kiwi jokes, everything a New Zealander finds funny. It's just one of those movies. It's kind of just like a piss take, really. And I was really disappointed with this movie. I loved Hunt for the Wilder People. That's my favourite New Zealand made movie. Pork Pie was alright, but it wasn't quite Hunt for the Wilder People, and this one was just a letdown. They had all the funny parts in the trailer. It was an interesting storyline, but if I'm honest, I got really bored. The next movie I went to go and see again was quite a popular one of 2018, and this one again I went to go and see with Phil, and it was his idea, on the 19th of the 5th at Reading Cinemas, and that is Deadpool 2. So again, another Marvel movie. I reckon it was better than the first one. Phil disagrees with me on that. I really liked the storyline in it. I thought it was really interesting. The jokes were hilarious. Acting was good. Like, Deadpool was always a bit of like a piss take, but also like done really well. The next movie I went to go and see at Reading Cinemas on 21st of the 5th, and I went to go and see this with Shosh, and this one is Love, Simon. I loved this movie. This is another really good chick flick. It stars Catherine Langford, I think that's her name, Hannah from 13 Reasons Why, and it stars Nick Robinson, which I love Nick Robinson as it is. I love his acting, and it's a really good storyline. It's basically like this guy that's a homosexual that's in the closet, and he's like struggling in high school to come out, which is very much related to society nowadays. The acting's really good. It's a really heartfelt movie. So based on a book, which I haven't read it yet, but I really want to, but I'm not sure who writes it. The next movie I went to go and see with Phil at Focal Point Cinema on the 3rd of the 6th, so now moving into movies from June. I went to go and see Upgrade. Now, when I was lying all my tickets out before to get them in order, I completely forgot I had even seen this movie, but it was quite a good movie. I found it a little bit confusing to watch, not gonna lie. Like, it took me a little bit to kind of click as to what was happening. Quite actiony from what I remember, and I think it was one of those movies that wasn't really advertised. It was just kind of on the website of movies that were available to go and watch. The next movie again was quite a popular one of 2018. I went to go and see this with Phil. Again, it was his idea, on the 25th of the 7th, so moving into movies from July at Reading Cinemas, and that was Antman The Wasp. Now, this movie apparently is set before Avengers Infinity War, which it gets really confusing with Marvel when they release movies that are set before other movies that they've already released. But no, this again was another movie that did quite well in the cinemas. I thought it was quite interesting. It's not one of my favourite movies because I think Ant-Man is kind of overlooked a lot of the time in Marvel, I feel like. I definitely think it was better than the first one. It was really funny. It had good jokes. So the next movie I went to go and see again with Phil at Reading Cinemas on the 12th of the 8th, so now we're moving into movies from August, and that was The Spy Who Dumped Me. I loved this movie. I thought it was hilarious. It stars Mila Kunis and the Australian one from Rough Night. I can't for the life of me think what her name is, but yeah, it stars her, the really crack up one. And again, she was just as crack up in this movie as she was in Rough Night. I thought it was a really interesting storyline. It's quite intense, and it wasn't quite what I thought it was going to be from the trailer, but I still really loved it. Got a good amount of action in it, so both your boyfriend or your girlfriend would love it. Like, the next movie I went to go and see at Reading Cinemas, again with Phil, on the 28th of the 9th, so now moving into movies from September, and that was A Simple Favour. Oh my gosh, this movie was so intense. It stars Anna Kendrick and Blake Lively. Now, I'd seen the trailer for this once and knew that I had to go and watch it, so it is a thriller. I really liked it. I feel like there was just so much that happened. Like, there was so much new information being thrown at you. You kind of just had to like take it all in just as it came, which was pretty much like this. So it is not a movie to watch if you're like quite tired or you've had a long day and want to go to the movies, because it is one that you have to be 100% awake for. I love both Blake Lively and Anna Kendrick. I think they're really good actresses. There's a lot of plot twists, that you kind of don't see coming, and it also has like a modern twist that kind of relates to how society is working now, if that makes sense. Alright, I have 2 movies left. So the next movie I went to go and see at Reading Cinemas on the 8th of the 12th. So I didn't, what was the last movie? Was that August? Oh no, September. So I didn't see any movies in October or November, which is really weird for me, because like there's been so many movies that have been coming out that I wanted to go and see, but we've either just not had time or our money has just been spent elsewhere. So we went to go and see The Grinch. Now I had been so excited for The Grinch since probably like September, I think, when I saw the trailer on Facebook. I actually reposted it onto my page because I liked it that much. It was a really good take on how The Grinch Stole Christmas. I will definitely be buying it when I see it come out on DVD. It's a really cute animation. The Grinch is played by Benedict Cumberbatch, and I think he does a really good job of it. I loved the storyline, loved the characters, loved the animation, and again, it was one of those movies that when we went to go and see it, it was just like kids in the cinema, like everywhere around us, but I loved it. It was great. And the lucky last movie that I watched in 2018 was on the 23rd of December at Focal Point, no, not Focal Point, at Event Cinemas. So the only movie that I had watched at Event Cinemas in 2018. I went to go and see this with Rachel and my German friend Sunny. We went to go and see The Mortal Engines. I'm not sure how I feel about this movie. It was a strange but interesting concept. I think the actresses and actors did a really good job. I was just not 100% sold on the plot. I think it was a little bit confusing. I feel like I'm going to have to give it a couple more watches. It's based on a book series, I think, which they did differently. So I think if you've read the books, you probably won't like the movie. It had a lot of advertising behind it, but yeah, I just wasn't 100% sold on it. So there we go, guys. Those are all of the movies that I watched in 2018. Clearly a lot of movies. If I watch quite a few this year, I'll do another one of these videos at the end of this year, just because I think it's fun to go back and look at all the movies I've seen and just kind of reflect on them. If you guys did enjoy this video, then please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Also make sure you turn on the notifications. It's just the little bell button next to the subscribe button, because YouTube isn't notifying you now when the people that you're subscribed to upload videos. Like I said before, if you were interested in any of these movies, all of the trailers are linked in the description box, so you can go and give any of them a watch if you would like. And also, if you have watched any of these movies, then leave them in the comments box below and tell me what you thought of them. Also, I'd like to know what your favourite movie of 2018 that you watched in the cinemas was. Was it one that I've seen, or was it something else that I didn't watch? It'd be great if you could come and follow me on my social media. My Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest and Spotify is all linked in the description box below. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye! Oh, really? Now my battery wants to screw up. Ugh. Okay. Bear with me one moment. Right, let's attempt that again, because my battery keeps running out. Oh, it's itchy. I need a drink. My throat is so dry. Oh, I've been filming since like 11 o'clock and it's now like 3 o'clock, so my throat's really dry. Oh, we just went really overexposed for some reason. Oh my gosh, the motorbike, shut up! I'm trying to film. It's Rachel, what are you guys up to? Who's this? I can't speak.